I really relied on my like clinical expertise to like really like sell them on it. Otherwise, if I just say like I'm compassionate, nice, hardworking, like that doesn't prove to them anything. Anybody can say that. And I'm speaking for a majority of them just because you have to kind of be this type of person to be in nursing, is having compassion and like emotional intelligence.
Okay, I'm making the jump. You made the jump and now you're in it. Like, what's your advice to them? Welcome back to New to Medical Device Sales. I am your host, Jacob McLaughlin, and today I have a very special guest, one of our members from New to Medical Device Sales, who was able to break into medical device sales at an OTE of 6 figures, who came from a nursing background. And at the young age of 27, I get to offer you all the advice from Nikolina Jurizic. I probably butchered the last name, but we're going to keep it going. But Nikolina, welcome to New to Medical Device Sales podcast.
Hi, thank you, Jacob. It's been such a pleasure, getting to know you and your team. And I'll just kind of start off by telling you guys a little bit about like why I jumped into this.
Yeah, of course. Let's hear it.
Awesome. So like Jacob said, I'm 27 years old. I've been a nurse for almost about 6 years. I was inpatient for a while. I'm from Chicago originally. So I did inpatient, like starting off as a new grad. I was getting overworked. I wasn't liking how I was looking. So I started to go to outpatient, and I did outpatient surgery for about a year as well. At that time, COVID rates were still pretty high. So I took the advantage to go make some more money, did some travel nursing. Did that for 3 years. Loved it. Got to see, I lived in Arizona for 2 years, where you're from.
Beautiful.
Yeah, loved it. Wish I could have stayed. But, I decided I wanted to move back to Chicago for family and personal reasons. So I took the opportunity to kind of do some research and seeing what I could do with my nursing degree. I had my master's in clinical education, so I always knew I wanted to do some kind of teaching, something on a broader spectrum.
Yep.
And after working like at different surgery centers as a contract nurse, I like talked and met so many different reps. I got to know a little bit about what they do on a day-to-day basis. And then I went down this rabbit hole. I saw your podcast. I watched your TikToks. Like I looked into your company's website, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this looks like something like I need help on. Like it's something that I want, but it's just I need that extra step and that extra little push.
Yep.
And that's when I kind of like fell into this whole like med device world, and I really was researching different companies and what stood out to me. I did cardiac and urology, so those were the kind of 2 main aspects I was looking at. Mm-hmm. But urology just really hit me. I feel like there wasn't enough females in the industry for that. And then that's when I fell upon Calixo. After taking your guys' course, you guys helped me with all the mock calls, all the modules. It helps really prepare you. They loved my 30, 60, 90 and business plan. They were like, literally this guy he's my coworker now. He's like, I've been doing this for 20 years and I've never seen anybody bring me this.
Just so you know, I just have to put that out there. Just so you guys know, people are always like, oh my gosh, I've heard that probably 1,000 times over the last 4 years of what we do. Hence why we get people hired at 6 figures and not starting at your $50,000. Just shout out to everybody. But yeah, go on.
Yeah. So I remember coming to my, to my ride along, and I brought him this binder, and he's like looking and he's laughing. He's like, how much did you pay for this freaking thing? And I'm like, I just came prepared, man. Like, I don't know what to tell you. And he literally could not stop smiling. He's like, this is incredible. So those were like really major things. And not only like just bringing that, but like I had to do my own research, and I found out more about the company, and I loved it even more after just like reaching out to all different reps, like learning more about the product. So it was really quite the experience, and I'm still learning so much. So I'm like super grateful to like be here today.
First off, amazing to have you, because everybody, we were just talking off air. We were talking, I'll never forget my call. I was out in San Diego doing training with our team, getting on a call with Nikolina, and how scared she was. And the reason I say that is it's not just her. Every nurse that I ever get on a call with is terrified, because they went from, and I say this out of love, it's like every joke I always have is, as long as you have a heartbeat and a certification, they have a job. And every nurse always laughs when I say it. But then it's like this huge investment into a whole different world that you guys aren't aware of, and that you spent 4 years of going to school for. And then also, not being rude, but like a lot of times when you guys will make this jump, crab in the buckets, all the other nurses usually will look down on you, make comments. Oh, you think you're better than us. So you are leaving a friend group or a group that you were a part of to go make a change. And first off, I always just say this to nurses: if that is your case, don't even tell other nurses because usually they're just going to tear you down. So it doesn't even do any good. But I just say that because I remember our first call. I remember how scared you were. I remember staying on with you and just saying, hey, I know it's all going to work out. I know we're going to get you in at six figures. I know you're going to be able to do it. And here you are smiling, six figures in med device sales. So I want to just put that, but a couple things I wanted to touch on. Number one, you said that you did travel nursing. I want to put this out there. I'm seeing a lot of travel nurses come to us because, again, they saw what traveling was in COVID. Now, unfortunately, it's not the same pay as COVID. So now these people who were making 100, 150, 2 or more than 200 doing travel assignments, they're now barely making 100, making 110, 120, like for the same work. And so then they're like, man, and that's only if I'm working OTE, picking up extra shifts, right? So we're starting to see a bigger shift of that because people are like, I'm sick and tired of working more. But the one thing I want to say for you, Nicolina, is like you continue to show like why it's possible is a lot of the nurses we get, it's not even so much that they're quote unquote burnt out for the job. Like you guys are great nurses, you're great people. But you saying like, hey, I got my master's. Knew I wanted to teach. You always knew there was something more that you could do. And I think that's the biggest thing that I see with a lot of our nurses is it's not so much that they hate their job and all the stuff. They still like it, but they just know that like there's only 24 hours in a day. The year's going to go by either way. Their life's going to go by either way. And like a lot of times they're like, I see a retirement party of 45 years, the same person, they made the same money for 40 years. I don't want that. I know I can go make more, change lives, have a bigger impact and work less. And I see that. So I just want to just put that out for you because I saw that in you. And I remember our conversations of you being able to say, hey, I know there's more for me. And now you're able to sit here and accomplish that there's more for you.
You know, Jacob, I remember being a new grad nurse and being like working on the same floor because I was a tech for like 2 years before I became a nurse on that same floor. And I was working with nurses that have been doing the same floor for 30, 40 years. And I remember telling myself, I'm like, I cannot do this. Yeah. Like, I love my patients. I love taking care of people. It's always been in me. Like, I just love helping people. And when I saw, I'm like, there has to be something more out there. Like, there has to be something that I can like, and with medical device, like you're using a product and you're helping surgeons like make a difference on a broad spectrum. And that is more like appealing to me than sitting 12 hours, well, not sitting, working 12 hours and taking care of these patients. And then the next day it's like, I don't even hear from them, like how they're doing. Like it's just like an in and out type of thing. Yeah. And this way I know like I'm making a huge difference on like thousands of patients. Yeah, it's huge. And just so you know, that's the number one thing. I just had a talk with another nurse yesterday, and that's the biggest thing is what, like you said, it's very transactional when you're a nurse, right? Here, let me help you. A lot of times the people yell at you, throw stuff at you, almost punch you or all this stuff. You have a lot of times doctors don't even listen to you or won't take orders, or you just get treated not very nicely. So you just feel like you're not doing it. And then you're like affecting the 6, 12, 20 patients, whatever you have that night. And like you said, you might not even know about them the next day compared to when you're in med device sales, right? You're doing surgeries, you're in it. It not only is your product and your company helping thousands, but you physically are the person training doctors, you're helping doctors, and you might have 15, 20 doctors doing surgeries with your product because you gave them value to now go make those difference in those patients. And it makes such a big difference. So I love that. And then also one thing I wanted to say is urology. I love this for you is like for the fact of like most people will think urology. I was in GYN. They think urology, GYN, and they're like, I don't know. I don't know if I could be in that world, all this stuff. The one thing I'll sit here and tell you from experience and to everybody I talk to, the best surgeons to work with are GYNs and urologists. And here's why. They have a sense of humor, most of them, because when you are working with those parts, you have to have some sense of humor that comes into it. And like usually they're pretty friendly. Also, normally a lot of stuff's scheduled. You're not getting on calls, like all the stuff. So it's a great division. It's a great thing. But I love that you were like, hey, this was my experience. Instead of being like, I have to go do all these different things, you're like, hey, I'm going to go find something that I already know I enjoy. And then because of you being in that and working in it previously, you got to find a company that you're like, I align with this. I see the mission. I actually solve this problem. I know what kind of problem this is. And I would love to be able to help solve that. And I would love for you to kind of speak on that because again, you could have gone anywhere in med device sales, but you found your company in urology that's like, hey, let's go make a difference because you had experience in it. Absolutely. So when I was working at the outpatient surgery center, it was a urology surgery center. We did some pain interventions too because there was an anesthesiologist that worked on the other side, but mostly it was urology. And I just remember, so we would have patients coming in with kidney stones all the time. Like that was majority of what we did. And these patients would be like, I would have female patients that would tell me like, I would give birth 10 times just so I don't have to have a kidney stone ever in my life again. Like it's that painful. And like the doctors would come back and at that time they'd be like, hey, we got most of it, but like we had to put a stent in, like you'll have to pee the rest out. And like these patients are already coming in like scared, like dreading coming in, like you're NPO for hours at a time. Like they were at the emergency room the day before. So for them to get the news like, hey, we were able to do like a good amount, but you're still gonna have to pass the rest. They were always never satisfied. And when I was doing my research and I came upon Calyxo, I saw that they invented this product. Like they had a generation one, and now this is the generation two. That's getting rid of like 97% of the stone. And we've had cases getting rid of 100% of the stone. So this was just incredible to me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is probably changing so many freaking lives.
Yeah.
So that's when I started like, doing my network, doing my research, figuring out like how is this possible? Like, what are they doing? And then I learned so much about the product and it's so interesting. They like gave me a little demo kit to take home and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just like so fascinating how much goes into this. But yeah, and it's just been crazy to see like the difference on these patients' like faces, like how like fascinated they are.
Yeah.
And we get to be a part of it. Like, and they have no idea, but
yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah, we play a huge role in it. So it's awesome.
Yeah, and so with that said, though, is like one thing I wanna just touch base because hopefully it's always to provide those helpful tips to especially nurses because that's a lot who are gonna really resonate with you is, for you, what do you feel like was the biggest reason for you being like, hey, I think I can do something more and like maybe nursing, I still love it, I still like it, but maybe there's something more for me. I talked to reps and all that. What was the real moment of being like, hey, I'm gonna get on a call with Jacob. I need to learn more about med device sales, like all this stuff. Like what was that kind of moment for you? Because again, we get people who they're considering it after 2 years, 3 years, but we get people 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, but they don't know how to pull the trigger. They don't know if they want to pull the trigger. You went through the exact same process. What was that kind of like for you?
Just kind of to give you a backstory, like I've always like, I come from immigrant families. Like my parents are both immigrants. I'm a first generation American. So like for them, they've always been like, why are you not happy with what you have? Like we came from nothing. Like you should pretty much settle as a nurse. And for me, like I always knew there was so much potential. Like I'm driven. I'm hungry. Like I feel like I can provide so much more to this world than just working as a bedside nurse for 12 hours straight. Mm-hmm. Like I just knew that like I always like saying this to other people too, like always be a student. Like always learn, like always be open-minded. Like you never know what you can learn from somebody and take it to the next person. So for me, I just like, I sat down with my family. I'm like, I need to do something more. Like there needs to be something out there. And like, at first you don't get a lot of support because they're just like, come on, like be happy with what you have. Like, don't be greedy. And it's like, it's not about the money at some points. It's about like, providing more and being more and making a difference. And it's just like so satisfying. Like this, I've only been like doing this for like 2 weeks now. And I'm just like so satisfied with how things are going. And there's just so much more to look forward to.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. You're excited about it. You see the opportunity. There's so much to learn. You're seeing the actual impact you're having and the value that you're providing. And then there are all the other opportunities that can come from this, right? Because Absolutely. That's what I want everybody to talk to. And again, I always just say this. I've said it on my program a million times. The difference between rich people and poor people. And I always go into it. And people can get offended and all this stuff. But you're talking to the guy who had $66 to his name. So I was poor as poor. Put peanut butter back. So I've been in the both ends. I've had the American dream of getting commission checks in med device sales. I've done it. I just want to always provide value to nurses and other human beings that are listening to it. It's always this. The difference between rich people and poor people will never spend $1,000 because it's too much money. Rich people will always pay $10,000 if they can make $10,000. Rich people say how much. Poor people say how much. Rich people say, what's my return? And then a poor person thinks emotionally, it never works. I won't do it. What if I lose my money? What if? Logical person asks 3 logical questions. Do I believe it does what it says it does? Do I believe I'll do the work? And do I believe I'll get my return on investment? If I can answer those 3 things, I know everything else is going to be emotional. It doesn't matter. Logical. I know it works. The reason I'm telling you that, my friends, what people will never understand is how much money you make. 2 things. A is a direct association with the value you're bringing, right? Well, why does someone in cardiac get to make more money than somebody possibly in GYN, for example? Well, your uterus can hurt and you can still be alive, but your heart stops working, you're dead. there's some value to be brought there, right? Just so you guys can have an idea of how that works. But then also your mindset is the associated to how much money you will make. And that's one of the biggest things I continue to help our program and people learn is most human beings who come and work with me make under $100,000. And you know why I can relate with that? I used to make way under $100,000. And then I got to the point where I made a couple $100,000. And then I made more than that and made more with that. But what happened is the thing that we continue to teach, and Nicolina's already doing it. You've probably seen in the last 2 or 3 weeks the person you're supposed to become so you can try to go make 150, 200 grand in the division that you're currently in compared to when you were a nurse working bedside making 60 to 80K, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Because what people don't understand is how can I have conversations? How can I do this? Because I've lived it. But the only difference that I've learned working with millionaires, being in Scottsdale when I was a personal trainer and doing it, the only difference, it's not that they're smarter than you. It's not that they have more talents necessarily. It's that they had to become a certain person and handle certain situations and step into it and also have the mindset to believe it's possible. Because you have to first believe that you can make 100 grand, 200 grand, 300 grand, but then you have to become a person to actually make that. Because the most common thing I believed when I was 23, 24, 26, if someone just gave me $1 million, I know exactly what to do. I'd be amazing. And I can sit here and tell you, we could give you $300,000 and you'd spend it. You don't know what to do it. You would lose all the money. You don't know how to invest in it. And even worse, you don't know how to make it again. And that's why you see people who go bankrupt, lose it all the stuff, 2, 3, 4 years later, have that much more or make it all back plus more. Because it's the skills and the person you have to become to do that. And that's what I want everyone to hear, because what Nicolina's talking about is when you make a change in your life, like my family never made more than $70,000, any of them. So when I'm telling them I'm going to a division that's going to make over $150,000, $200,000, $300,000, it's fake. It's scam. I'm greedy. People who make money are bad people. Greedy people are not happy. Money can't buy you happiness. All the poor terms you're going to hear from people who don't make it. And let me just sit here and tell you, people who say that, it's because they don't have it and they don't know how. Because if you know how, you wouldn't say money's bad. Because guess what money does? Funds cancer research, funds a bunch of nonprofits, funds great things. But money can also be used for bad things, right? It has nothing to do with the money. It's the value goes. So I just wanted to do that to do a little reframe for everybody, because Nicolina, like, that's why I'm so proud of you, is even though you didn't have all the support, you knew for you didn't want to stay somewhere. And it has literally, the reason you're going to make a lot of money is because it's not even about the money for you. It's just going to be the growth that you want. You're excited, like you said, the opportunities, and even more the skills that you're going to learn to go be able to provide value. And because you learned all those things, it's going to come with you making more money because you have more skills. You offer more value. You do stuff that's going to make a difference in people's lives, which you're also in an industry that pays very well to do, right?
Absolutely.
And that's what I just want to hit on. And maybe you can talk to a little bit, because that's what most people will never think of. And especially nurses making under 100 grand. That's not a shot to you. I'm not saying you're not worth it. I'm not saying that, but it does take a certain person to make over a couple $100,000.
And you definitely, I feel like I want to add on that too, is like, I had to take a step back from, like, you know, living in Arizona, I learned a lot about myself because I was away from family and friends. I just wanted to figure out like what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Sometimes I don't know if this is a problem with a lot of other people, but with me, it's like coming back home to a familiar place. Like, you're always being pulled in 10 million directions, and like joining this course and like trying to figure out what I want to do for my life, I definitely had to put some barriers in between a couple of things. Like, you know, put my phone on do not disturb for a couple hours, go to the library, go learn, go like educate myself. Like, because no one at the end of the day is going to be able to push you. You got to push yourself.
Come on.
So you have to be driven. You have to be hungry. If you want it, you got to go get it. No one's going to be giving you a silver spoon and being like, here, like, it's that easy, you know? So you definitely got to put in the work. But if you're motivated, that shouldn't be a problem at all.
100%. And that's one of the things I just want to mention real quick, is what we really help with is that as you're seeing it, you're not going to get a lot of support from outsiders because they won't understand it. I always say, nobody understands your dreams. It's your dream. Like, they don't need to understand it, right? It's your dream. But like you said, what people don't understand is why I always tell people, like, I did the same thing. I left, and I remember leaving Iowa, going to California, doing an internship for 3 months. I hated it. And I was like, oh my gosh, can't wait to go back to Iowa. And then the more depressing part was I went back after experiencing California and living on my own for 3 months. I went back home and I hated that. And I was like, I'm stuck. I'm not going to change. I'm going to be around all my same friends who are just going to be still drinking beer and hanging out in their Morton farm buildings and talking about the football game that doesn't matter. And I was like, and they're going to just gain weight and I'm going to be here 30 years from now and nothing's changed. I don't want that. And that's what made me leave. And so I always tell people, to young people, if you're under the age of 25, under the age of 30, and you are single and you are at home and all this stuff, for the love of God, please just leave for a little bit. Go take a trip, go do stuff, because you can always go back, but you will learn more about who you are. And the biggest thing that we help our people learn, especially in our program, do you believe what you believe because you believe it, or do you believe what you believe because other people, aka mom, dad, grandma, aunt, all the other people told you to believe it, and that's how you were grown up? Because a lot of times, if that is, then your only reality is what your family knows. And if your family's not wealthy or doing all this stuff, it's going to be really hard for yourself to do that. And so it's breaking down that. But like you also said, barriers, because what I watch a lot of people do, you go home, now it's expected you do a bunch of stuff. And then what people do also is, because they're comfortable, is then now they self-sabotage, right? The one thing that I'll sit here and tell you is that's one of the biggest things we work with human beings on. And it has nothing to even do with med device sales. You want to make 100 grand, 200 grand plus? You got to stop self-sabotaging. What does that mean? Get out of relationships that bring you toxic. Get out of relationships that are always drama, that you're always having that friend who's like, oh my God, this person's doing this. And now you can never talk about actual productive stuff. Get away from people who tear you down and tell you your ideas are dumb. Get away from the people that don't believe in you. Like it sounds so silly, but I'll sit here and tell you my life expedited went up. The amount of money I went up, the happiness, the peace, like everything went up when I started doing it. And what people will never understand is usually it's with your extreme or it's with your close family that you have to start with, and just put boundaries in there. So I love that you said that. Again, guys, you may not think this is about med device sales. First off, we try to help you guys way outside of med device sales, but just so you know, anything you do in your life, it's going to carry over into what you do. Now, getting back into medical device sales, and for the nurses that are interested in med device sales, one of the things I always love is, we talked about this off air, is how your background is going to carry over, because you can understand how a nurse feels. You can understand with people you work. You've been in for a couple of weeks now and you're drinking from the fire hose and having all the fun, and you're already seeing all the good stuff of it. And you're also seeing how easy it is to win if you actually are driven, hungry, curious, and you want to just keep getting better, right? Because there's people you can meet that have been in for years and you're like, I know more than you, and it's been 2 weeks. The reason I'm just sitting here saying that is, what do you feel has been some of the big things from nursing, your nursing background, that has kind of carried over, to the interview process where you went into, and then also just being in medical device sales? Where do you feel like some of those skills that you learned in nursing carried over there?
So I definitely think as like nurses, and I'm speaking for a majority of them, just because you have to kind of be this type of person to be in nursing, is having compassion and like emotional intelligence. So like understand when you're like talking to some people, you're reading them to seeing how they're reacting back. So if they're super stressed, they might be coming off a little bit bold. If they're super involved in conversation like you and me right now, they're super enthusiastic, you could kind of read the room. So I feel like that definitely carried on, because like going into the operating room, it's not always the best scenarios, and people could be stressed. Then that goes from the surgeon to the surgical tech to the nurse in the room. So you definitely need to be able to know when it's okay to talk and when it's okay to mention some things. Of course, for the patient, like you have to speak up if you see something wrong, but I'm saying just like in terms of like saying some inappropriate things at the wrong times. So I feel like that definitely, like when I was interacting with my patients, I was able to read the situation and kind of guide them in a direction. Sometimes people just want you to listen. So yeah, that's one thing that I really took forward. And like also like just critical thinking skills, like just like prioritizing and understand like, what do I need to do first? Like what's the most important and what can I save for the very last?
Just so you know, welcome to why you're going to make so much money. The reason I say that to everybody who's like, well, why is Jacob keep saying that, is because, you know, I work with a lot of human beings. You know what most people don't have? Critical thinking. They literally, everybody wants stuff spoon fed to them. That's why our nurses, our PTs, our OTs, the clinical side of it normally, or even people with some previous sales experience, you have to think on your feet, especially in this, like as a nurse, you have to think on your feet. You have somebody screaming, you have something that coding, whatever it is, you got to think on your feet and you need to go and act. And also, like you said, you need to be able to read the room and be like, hey, is this person really doing this? Are they just mad? Are they angry? But then when you have 5 patients and they're all having problems, who absolutely needs it right now and who could wait a couple minutes, wait a couple hours, right? Like it's so true, because that's all med device sales is. You walk in, you're going to have things that come into your plate, and you got to prioritize, what do I need to do right now? And what do I need to do in the next several hours, days, this week, right? And so that's why I'm just saying, you saying that goes such a far way. And you nurses, that's some of your selling points that, again, going back to, oh, I don't have the right background, right? You personally beat out someone with quote unquote more experience, right? That's why we say, literally the post I put out today was, don't worry about your competition. Your only competition is you, because
Hmm.
you came in, you crushed it, you gave them a business plan, you showed them all the time. They're like, oh my gosh, we want to take a shot on you. You're amazing, because you focused on you, because you and I both know you got a lot of value to bring to people. Your background, you can be able to talk with people. You're hungry, your eagerness, all that stuff. I just want people to hear that when Nicolina is talking about being able to come and make a difference. Now, what I really want to talk to is going back to, hey, no experience. What was it like for you to go through the interview process as a nurse with no sales experience?
So I feel like that's when I really relied on my like clinical expertise to like really like sell them on it, and just giving them like scenarios. You have to be ready to talk about examples like that. Otherwise, if I just say like I'm compassionate, nice, hardworking, like that doesn't prove to them anything. Anybody can say that.
Yeah.
But giving them examples, I feel like in my clinical field, like teamwork, two questions that they asked me was like, tell me a really good time where teamwork went well, and tell me a bad time when teamwork went terrible. And I was able to provide those examples, and like this regional sales manager, she loved it. She's like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, that's a perfect example, because that's what we go through too. You do black out at some point, and I've heard this from Roxy and Jennifer. So like during the interview, you definitely like, I highly suggest like, bringing a little notepad just to take notes, because I look back sometimes, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I blacked out for quite maybe 20, 30 seconds. I didn't know what was going on. But I feel like, you definitely have to sell yourself and make sure that like you're able to be molded. You want to be, you're coachable. You want to be a student, and that they like that. They want to make sure that like you're not going to be difficult to work with, and that it'll be pretty easy to train you pretty much.
Yeah. And that's what, just so you guys know, that first off, that's great advice. And number two is, it's the big thing is they just want people who are moldable. Like I just talked to Nicolina about this off air. It's like, I can tell you as someone who hires employees, and I can tell you who gets people hired with employees, and I can tell you to someone who works with CEOs and talks with hiring managers all the time. And the number one thing we always laugh about is most people lie about what they have on their resume and what they say they can do. It is absolutely hysterical. And the reason I'm sitting here telling you is that's why we are teaching all the big things of, are you a hard worker? Are you self-motivated? Can you think? Can you critically think? Like you're saying, can you just show up on time or before time? Like even for today's podcast, you were on early. Like it's just the little things that add up that most people don't do. Because we live in a culture now, if we say 8 and they show up at 8:04, they're like, it's still 8. It was 4 minutes. Like, what's the problem? And the problem is, if you're showing up 4 minutes late, that shows that you don't take everything else in your life serious, and that you're going to show up to a surgery and forget something because it's not a big deal. It's just a seal, right? And that's the problem with people don't understand. It's somebody's life that's on that table. And that's what they're looking for. And they just need someone who's hungry that can show them. But I can sit here and tell you, as somebody who gets these people hired all the time and who talks to a lot of the people, AKA a lot of you guys who call me, it's like none of them come prepared. None of them know up from down. And then they're like, oh, I want this. And we live in a world that's very entitled, that just because you want it and you want to make $100,000, and just because you wanted to post on social or whatever it is, you should just have what you want. And let me just tell you, you don't get that in this world. The world gives you what you get, and the world gives you who you are. Right. And so you want to become better, you want to make more, you have to become that person to do that. And that's one of the things I talk about. And maybe you can just kind of talk about this, Nicolina, is like our program is more moldable, of like molding you into people that you need to become to not only break in, but also to be successful in the industry. Because I would just love to hear some of your thoughts. It's fun for me to hear. What's some of the biggest things you learned from, again, us having that call? You're scared. I'm like, hey, trust me, I know it's going to work out. To now you're in. But like, what did you learn through that process of being inside the program?
Definitely didn't know. Like had I tried to get into medical device on my own, there's so much useful information you guys put. Like Roxy calls them like golden nuggets. Like there's so much good stuff that you guys talk about that I never would have thought of. And it could just be like from my background, like doing nursing, like interviews. Like I never had to go through any of that. So like you guys give so much useful information. And like what's nice is that you guys schedule like calls like almost every day. So if you can't make it on Monday, try to do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, like pick a day. Like I said, put barriers down, like make time for it. If you have a birthday at 5 and the call's at 5:30, like go late to the party, like make that sacrifice, because the longer you take to keep pushing everything back, the longer it'll take, and you're just going to lose motivation and momentum. So you really got to stay on top of it. And that's what motivated me. And like being involved in the like conversations, like you get on calls, sometimes you're a little nervous, you've never met these people, like everyone has their own stories, but like you guys make it so easy to be like so open and talk about anything and everything that like take the opportunity to ask questions. Like this is your time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and it's useful for everybody too.
Yeah.
They might hear a question that they're like, oh, that's a good point. Like I never even thought about that. It was fun. I had a great
I love it.
time. Honestly, I met so many cool people like online with you guys. So
It's
yeah, it's been an experience.
It's the best. And honestly, I appreciate you saying that. It's just for me, it's like that's why we do it. Is like you just get to meet other great people. They're all getting in the industry. You guys are going through the struggles together. Like it's easier to be with somebody else. And like right, I always think about landscaping. We would all hate it, but we were in the suck together, right? So then you like became best friends with them and you're like, oh, this sucks. You got to go
Yeah.
pick up rocks. You're like, dang it, this, right? But you had your friends, so it was fun. But the reason I'm just saying that is it's not like that's the whole time in med device sales and breaking in, but it's making sure you guys are seen. We can answer your questions because there's like that. There's things you're not going to know about. But the one thing I want to just touch on is because I smile and I think about it is that's one of the biggest things I think I watched with you and you continue to do it. And that's why I know you're going to be a great rep. But the biggest concern you had was like, is right now the right time? Maybe in a couple of weeks and all this stuff. And then now when you're in the course, you're like, stop, block it off, be there, do it. Don't be square, right? Like make it happen. Because again, it's what we talk about. And it's what we talked about on our call is the difference between successful people and not successful people is successful people are doers and they just get it done. And they know that it's never the right time. There is never going to not be something that comes up. But the difference is the doers and the successful people are going to just get it done and figure out a way. Besides the unsuccessful aren't, because they always say this, and it is true to my life. Like, they always say, you need something done, give it to a busy person. I will find a way. I'll get it done. Even like today, I have 3 calls. I don't have time for it. I'm going to find a way to get them done at some point. The reason I'm saying that is that's what people need to hear. And that's what you did. And it's fun to like, when we were on our first call and you're like, I don't know, maybe a couple more weeks, all the stuff too. Then you're like, show up to the birthday party late, God's sake. Like, it's going to pay off. And that's one thing. I think you did such a great job. And I know we talked about this a little off air when I called you, is like just understanding this isn't forever. Like the program, the sacrifices, everything you're doing, it's not like you're doing this for the rest of your life. It's like, hey, can you sacrifice a couple weeks, a couple months to change your life forever? And I think that's the real big thing that I want everybody to always think about. And that's something, Nicolina, you've done a great job. And it's why you're going to continue to crush it, is because you're learning and you've done a really great job and you're already doing it, is how can I delay gratification, maybe for a little bit, but go through some pressure times to then go more? Because exactly what you're doing in your current role, you're going to be in your role for the next 6, 12 months, do the exact same things, suck it up, learn all this stuff, do all this stuff to eventually get promoted and make more money. But that's what people don't think about, that they see everybody else and they'll see our people come in as full line reps or what then. They're like, I just want that. And I'm like, but you haven't done all the sacrifices and all the work and everything else. It's like they say, every success story you had, like for example, business, they're always like, every successful business you heard that happened overnight, there was 8 years you didn't know about them grinding every day. Right. And that's just the truth. Like every person who's a breakout star in athletics was grinding for the last 10 years doing drills in the dark gym that nobody knew about. And so that's what I just want people to take away. But what's your biggest advice, whether people don't have sales experience or they do have sales experience, especially like my nurses, like that's who you'll be able to talk to. What's your advice to those people trying to break into medical device sales now that you started, you were like, I don't know if this is for me. Okay, I'm making the jump. You made the jump and now you're in it. Like, what's your advice to them?
My biggest advice would be that if you're in the same position that I was and you didn't see yourself moving forward, because there's only so much you can do in a hospital field, management in that case, clinical education. If you really want to make a difference on a broad spectrum and like work hand in hand with the surgeon to make differences, this is your opportunity. Like this is a great field to be in. I haven't stopped smiling since I got the offer letter, and that was like 3-4 weeks ago. So it's just such an exciting step, and it's only looking forward from here. And like I was talking to you offline about this, but like I'm keeping my foot on the gas pedal and just keeping this momentum going. And like there's no way, like you just are learning so much constantly. Like there's just so much. If it's not from surgeons, from surgical techs, other nurses, like other reps, like you're just constantly surrounding yourself around people that are like trying to be successful and see you win as well.
a hundred
Couldn't be
percent.
always the case, but majority of the case, yes. Like I've met so many great people from different medical device companies that are just rooting for me, and I'm rooting for them. And it's just been such, it's like a whole different world that you're entering.
Y-
So it's
yes.
truly exciting, and I am looking forward to what's going to look like in 5, 10 years from now.
Oh, first off, it's going to be absolutely crazy for you, because you again you have that growth mindset. But I do want to just hit on what you just said there is like just understand like why people in other med device companies, why Jacob will be excited and pumped when you get in at six figures and know you're going to make more, is because you get around other people who don't have the pull you down mindset. They have the pick you up and lift you up because they know if you make money, it doesn't affect them at all not making any money, right? The reason I'm sitting here saying that is, like, for example, you watch the doctor pull up in a Porsche, the surgeon pull up in a Porsche or a Lambo. Again, and not all of them do. I'm just like speculating. I'm in Scottsdale, so most of them pull up in a Porsche. They're not looking at this rep saying, screw this rep that they're in my OR right now and they make this much money. They don't care. They're making their own money doing their own product and doing their own service, right? And so the reason I'm just saying that is you get around other like-minded people and salespeople, right? The one thing I'll sit here and tell you, yes, there is a piece of us that is motivated by money. Guess what? Makes the world go around. You have to have it. You want nice things. You have to have money. That doesn't make us evil. It doesn't make you horrible. It's not making you a used car salesman, because a used car salesman sells you stuff you don't need. Reps are selling stuff to a product that's actually changing people's lives and not having them go through pain and whatever. And so the reason I'm just sitting here telling you that is that's the number one thing I see from my nurses is there's so much fear of getting out, because just being honest, a lot of times my mom's a nurse, so I'm going to just put that out there. My mom is a nurse, so I can say it. But a lot of times in the nurse world, it is a very toxic place. It is a pull you down, beat you up. You can't do it if I can't do it. You make more money than an hour than me. Screw you. And it's all tear you down. And it's all, if you're doing something better, that means I'm doing worse. I hate you. That's what I see on the everyday. Just so you know, that's not every profession. So I need to just put that out there. There are professions that pick you up, but this is the last thing I want everyone to hear, because this is the talk I had with Nicolina, and I think it was one that really made it help, was every single nurse I get on a call with is absolutely terrified. They are scared. They're like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. What all the things? And they play all the what ifs. But no nurse ever plays what if it all goes right. What if I'm like Nicolina and I get hired and I make more money and I'm going to work less and I don't have to do all the shifts? Nobody does that. But then let me make your life a little more easier. You are already living your worst case scenario. Because if you went and broke into medical device sales, you now just learned another skill. You learned about more products. You had different experiences. You make more money and you probably work less. But let's say you hate that. You hate every second of it. You know what I can guarantee you? You can go get another nursing contract or nursing job, because if you have a heartbeat and a certification, they will take you. And yes, maybe it is not at the exact same unit and the exact same floor with the exact same people. I hear you there. But guess what? It's still the same exact thing that you're going to be doing. So the reason I'm just saying that is this is the mindset shift that we help people with. You are already living, if you're like Nicolina before this, she was already living the worst case scenario that she wanted to get out of. And all I had to be was like, what if we get you to the best case scenario? And you're like, I love that. And now here you are with a big smile on your face. It's been 2 weeks. You're like, it's the freaking best. And you're living the best case scenario. And you have other people going, Nicolina, yes, you can win. Yes, you can make more money. And guess what? If she makes 200 grand, I'm going to be like, yes, you made 200 grand. That's amazing. Not screw you. You just took money out of my business, because guess what? I'm not even in urology. So it doesn't matter to me. And that's the difference that I want people to hear, because that's what we do so much here, is have you guys realize that and want you to win, because everyone can win here. They print money, for God's sake. They just say, we want more. They print it. It's everywhere. But you have to get yourself to a place, but get yourself out of environments. And if you're a nurse right now, feeling stuck, having people tear you down, feeling like you can't do anything, but you're meant for more, or you're just burnt out and you've done it for years, just understand you're already living your worst case scenario. Because guess what? You can go do it. And if you don't like it, come back to it. And that's worst case.
And Jacob, I have to mention this because this was a recent scenario that happened. I was going to pick up a case at the surgery center that I used to work at. And of course, I'm still close with all my nurse friends. And I ended up telling her, I'm like, hey, I'm going to be there tomorrow. Like, just didn't want you to be surprised if you see me. Like, I got this new job. And she's like, oh, are you going to act like better than us now? Like, is that you're just going to act like you don't know me? And of course, you there is that difference, especially leaving that nursing field, I will say. But Kill them with kindness, say hi to them, still keep up to date with them. Like, don't act like a stranger just because
Yeah.
you got this other role. And like, they really appreciated that. Like, I mean, I still see them even to this day. Like, I still see them and they're always like, oh my God, what are you up to? Like,
Yeah.
what's going on? Just put a smile on your face, kind of brush it off your shoulder. Like, people will say stuff to you like that. But, you're doing it for yourself. You're chasing your dreams. So they shouldn't be upset about that.
Bam. And that's the thing that just needs to be hit. First off, they're always a resource to you. So it makes no sense to be rude to them because they're going to help you get doctors or they can actually self-sabotage you in the surgery centers or hospitals. So silly
Right.
gooses don't do that. But number two, that's the concept, right? Like, just so you guys know, the reason is because there are a lot of reps who go in and they're like, you're just a nurse or you're just a scrub tech. They think they're better and they are rude. That's why I always sit here and tell you guys, be genuine. Actually care about a human being. You were a nurse. I was a personal trainer. Like, if you just do that, you win. Kill them with kindness. Always just be the bigger person. But most reps, guess why? They have an ego. They're trying to prove something to somebody. They're trying to tell you how much money they make always, and that means that gives them worth because they don't love themselves enough to have worth. And that's a whole nother story we ain't even getting into because that's a lot of work we don't have time to do. But I want you guys to hear that. Exactly what Nicolina said to end with is they don't have to understand. Just so you guys know, every move that I've ever made, I've always got hate on. I've always had people tell me I'm dumb, I'm stupid, it must make no sense. What am I, crazy? Moved out? Literally moved out. My family, one of my dad, for God's sake, I'll just be out there. My dad called me and told me I was dumb and so selfish to leave Iowa to come out to Arizona. And I don't say that, great dude, love him. But the reason I'm just sitting here telling you, he never made more than $50,000. And so as a 23-year-old young, hungry dude, it intimidated him to watch his own son go and try to chase a better life because he had made his whole life about me and wanted me to stay there. The reason I'm sitting here telling you that's close family, that's all this stuff, but you can't worry about what other people think because guess what? Because of the life I decided to choose, I'm now able to bless all of them. I'm able to bless other people. And that's what people miss is you doing it. It just needs to be for you because at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter. Let me just say this. Let's say you want $1 million. If you're doing it for the other people and you get the $1 million and they don't care, you're going to feel pretty empty. That's why you always have to do stuff for just you and understand people are going to talk trash. I get it. Just so you guys know, we are on the internet. Some of you are going to watch this and be like, this is the best podcast. And then I'm going to have other comments be like, you suck. You're the worst. Why do you even do this? I hate you. Whatever it is. The reason I'm saying that's the internet, number one. But number two, you just can't care about it. You have to focus on you. Go make your life because the thing I'm saying is why I tell you guys, you want to make 200-300 grand in med device sales, go do it. Because you'll talk to reps who've been in for 10 years and say, you can't, nope, those days are gone. And yet we have somebody who our people get to work with literally has been in under 2.5 years and she's doing way more than that. So it's possible. Just get around people who believe that it's possible for you. So Nicolina, I just want you to know, I'm first off so dang proud of you, just seeing where you came from to our first call to where you're at. It has been absolutely amazing. But just how proud I am and congratulations on breaking into medical device sales.
Because I couldn't have done it without you guys. So thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate that. I just want you to know I'm so proud of you. And it's what makes my life. It's what makes my day is knowing that you just changed your life to now go set up a better life for you and your family and go live the life that you want. The last thing I'll just leave it with is there anything, any advice to anybody, any encouragement that you want to say to just end off with?
Don't be scared. Change is good. Being uncomfortable is good. So that's where you'll see improvement and that's where you'll see a difference. So
love it. Can't say it any better myself. It is what's important. So if you guys can press that like and subscribe button, a 5-star review really helps us grow this channel. If you can share this with a nurse or somebody in the clinical area that you feel like it could be helpful for, please do that. Or if it's just somebody you feel this podcast could help, please send it to them. Mean the world for me. If you guys would like, make sure to go check down this other video where we have other videos of people who are nurses breaking in that were just like you, because we want to just keep showing you it is possible while everyone else tells you it's not possible. And somehow we keep having people like Nicolina come on here, do our stuff. And then she's like, oh my gosh, I'm here. This is what I did. It worked. And at some point you guys just have to do it for yourself. So I just want you all to know, always rooting for you. You can do it. Nicolina, thank you again for coming on here. It means the world.
sure. Thanks for having me.
And I wish everybody a happy holidays coming forward and just keep crushing it. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.